Happy New Year. I'm Marcy Lundy. Today is Tuesday, January 9th, 2024, and this is the Cult of Kindness podcast. As I spoke about last year, a lovely former guest here, Pauline Raphaela, will be on every now and then with her parallel perspective with Pauline, as we call it. So please welcome back to the podcast, Pauline Raphaela. Hi, Pauline.
Oh, hi, Marcy. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah.
I love the cult of kindness.
Oh, we love having you on and Happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you and all your listeners.
Yes. So I'll say it now because I don't want the audience to wonder, but Pauline's wonderful babies are right there behind her. So they're sunning themselves and they're part of our wonderful energy here.
Yes. And cats do bring that kind of energy, right?
Right,
They
exactly.
do.
They do. So this year, I wanted to start off with the conversation of forgiveness. As season 4, we're on our self kindness journey. And that is just certainly not something that's always easy, whether we're doing it on our own or whether we're trying to forgive others, all just kind of complicated. So, Pauline, I have been doing my homework via your words, and I must say it was not only insightful, but it was soul food that I needed personally. So thank you, first of
Oh,
all, for that.
oh, you're very welcome.
Yes. So the first thing that I wrote down that you'd written was the act of forgiveness is one of the highest, most profound, enlightening, and freeing things we can do. The soul awakens when we forgive, our body heals, while the ability of our heart to love unconditionally grows stronger. The benefits of forgiving yourself or another is at the roots of all well being in the mind, body, and soul. And first of all, so true, so spot on. I wanted to ask you, did it take you a minute to realize this for yourself, or is it something that was easy for you to understand?
Um, oh no, it's not easy. It's not, and we can understand it intellectually, and I think
Mhm.
that a lot of people do understand it intellectually. However, forgiveness is not an intellectual process, right? It
Yeah.
really is an emotional journey,
Mhm.
and it does take time. And one of the things I did with myself was I didn't force myself to forgive quickly, whether it was myself or someone else,
Okay.
because I found that if I tried to do that, what I did was I jumped from being here, right, hurting,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then tried to jump up here to the forgiveness place.
Hmm.
And you can kind of do it intellectually, but then there's all these layers of emotion that are still there. So I call forgiveness a journey. You do have to kind of go through the layers. Some people find it easier to forgive others and have very great difficulty forgiving themselves. And other
Yeah.
people have the reversed. They can forgive themselves more easily, but if someone has truly hurt them, it's very hard to forgive. And so I
Right.
say, make no judgment about it, because it's not an easy process, especially if you've been very, very hurt.
Sure. Yeah. I think that that's so true. Actually, a lot of the times it seems like people are harder on themselves. It's hard to forgive themselves. And just describing those layers, that part is very difficult because once you get to the point where you want to do it, you just want to quickly do it. Going through that process is hard.
Yeah, you want to jump up to feeling much better. And
Right.
we all want
Mhm.
to jump up to get back to that place of harmony and feeling better,
Yeah.
so as quickly as possible. And
Right.
sometimes we can do it. And
Hmm.
other times it takes longer. It really does. I mean, it can even take a few years. And that's why I say don't judge, don't try to force it. If you haven't forgiven yet, whether it's yourself or someone else, you're not a bad person. You're
Mm.
not in the darkness. You're not less than. You're not. It's not that you're not enlightened. I don't know that highly enlightened beings were able to forgive like that either. It so because we're human, so we have all these layers of emotion to
Yeah,
work through. So I say it's a journey, and really be gentle with yourself in this process.
absolutely. Another thing that you'd written was past discretions can haunt people even when they've forgiven themselves. And I I think I well, first let me explain this. So when I was doing my homework and I was like, okay, I think forgiveness should be the topic. Between what I was reading and what you were writing were so in sync that I was like, okay, when something's kismet, because this was
Mhm.
like just really in sync with what I was feeling, what I was reading. So I think the past discretions was where my head was. And it can certainly haunt you when you're trying to go forward and you're like, okay, I'm in another spot now. But, it's like, here come the layers.
Exactly. Here come the layers that I have to
Yeah.
look at within myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this, and I know that even many other people have said it. We're always doing the best we can at that given time, at that moment,
Mm.
even if it's
Yeah.
not the best we can do, even if it's like the worst we can do. Apparently,
Yes.
that's the best we can do at that time. And
Yeah.
I think that when we recognize that we are human as well, right? We're spirit, but
Mm-hmm.
we're having this human experience,
Mm-hmm.
and we have chosen a challenging planet to live on.
Mm.
we, we that we're going to experience this, we're going to
Right.
experience these moments, right? And they're
Mm.
not going to be easy, but that is part of evolution.
Okay.
That is a necessary part of evolution, and we
Mm.
can't escape it. If we try to escape it and we try to jump up and stay here, you know,
Yeah.
you're not really grounded in reality. You're in some sort of
Mm.
la la land, right? Where
Mm.
everything is perfect. And life
Right.
is far from perfect down here.
Right.
And I one of the things I've said, it was a meme I created. Love heals all wounds. Um, forgiveness, um, forgiveness creates miracles. And
Mm.
no, forgiveness heals all karma,
Oh.
and compassion creates miracles.
Mm.
So yes, that's my own. I had to just go back and sort of unlock what was in my brain for for a moment. Yes,
Yeah.
love heals all wounds.
Okay.
Forgiveness, forgiveness um, heals all karma,
Oh,
and
it's beautiful.
compassion creates miracles. So how does forgiveness um, heal our karma? Because
Mm.
we've come here to experience these things that that are potentially from past lives as well. And the only way out of that karma, so that it's not repeated over and over and over again, the
Mm-hmm.
situation, whatever it may be, is to
Yeah.
forgive
Mm.
them and yourself.
Okay.
That unravels the cord. Forgiveness
Mm.
unravels that cord that keeps us connected, maybe to someone or a situation, but through hurt or anger or pain. When we
Yeah.
forgive, we can release that cord, and that releases the karma.
Oh, very good. So, in that process of where we're trying to forgive, be it ourselves or others, what do we do when that emotion tries to get in and attack the vulnerability of us trying to move forward?
Yeah. Well, the way that I work with my emotions is, and they're not always easy to recognize, right? Especially when you have to acknowledge that you're very hurt, or you feel very insecure, or you are angry. I get very quiet, I get very silent, and I call in my inner child, but I
Mm.
also call in my higher self.
Okay.
Okay. So
Mm.
I work with the child that feels hurt and feels angry, and I tell her that I understand and that she's not wrong. And let's look at how she can forgive and let go. And then when I work with my higher self,
Mhm.
right? Now I'm in the place where I've already forgiven, that there is
Okay.
almost nothing to forgive in the higher realms, because
Okay.
all of these situations have been contracted. We have agreed to them for our growth, for their growth. And so I work with my higher self as a light force, as a God source, right?
Okay.
As a
Right.
very high source of creation. And then I
Hmm.
work with my inner child, right, who has her little wounds and insecurities. And I work with the two of that. And I can't even explain to you exactly how I do it, but calling in those two energies and meditating on it has a deeply profound positive result.
Hmm. How does one tap into the ability to do that?
So that's, I seem to have this uncanny ability to split myself into different parts.
Sure.
But to the average person, I would say, as a starting point, get a picture of yourself as a child.
Hmm.
Okay, so you can identify with that child and work with that child and help her or him, right? Heal
Okay.
their wounds by giving them comforting statements that you understand that it's okay. And if you were to imagine yourself as your higher self, what would that be? So
Mm.
now, for a woman, it might be an image of a goddess, right?
Right.
For a man, it might be an image of just like a powerful male force.
Hmm.
I mean, it could be Jesus, it could be a king, it could be Archangel Michael, it could be
Yeah.
Archangel Raphael, because we really are naturally all connected to these sources. It's not that
Okay.
some of us are and some of us aren't. We
Yeah.
all are. So it's
Okay.
acknowledging that we are. And when we start to bring these higher forces in consistently,
Hmm.
we begin to feel the shift of that energy.
Hmm.
In the last podcast, we talked a little bit about subtle energies, right?
Right.
And this is one of the ways to begin to pull in and connect with subtle energies. It has to be consistent. But
Okay.
as we call in that higher self, imagine yourself as the goddess self, right? Or
Right.
um, um, like a Venus, or
Hmm.
the goddess Isis, or just imagine that you are also connected to that source, because you are.
Exactly.
And call it and just ask this essence to be with you right now. Be with me right now and help me talk to and heal the inner child who is hurt and wounded from this situation.
Mm.
These are these are things I'm going to be talking even more and more about this year,
Okay.
because this year is 2024, which is an 8 year, and spirit tells me we need to start embracing the abundance frequency. And I'll
Okay.
talk more about that on some of my own things, or maybe here
Okay.
next time, but talking
Yeah.
about this abundance frequency, we have to begin to call in the subtle energies from above. And at first you might not feel it, but if you keep doing it, I promise you, you will, because
Okay.
that's how it worked for me.
Right.
And
That's
that's how we
good.
begin to open up to it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think I asked you that last time. Just how do we get to that point? That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yes. Yeah. And I would love to share how I worked with other people to forgive, because it's a
Hmm.
great little technique. And if you'll allow me to, I'd love to share that here.
Absolutely.
So I just described something that we can use to help heal ourselves. But let's say you're working with someone, and I've done this and it really works. So I close my eyes and I allow myself to sort of travel upward a little bit, just deep breathing, right? Just get yourself into a relaxed state. Call in the person that you need to forgive. Call them in. Now, I typically call in their soul, and I work soul to soul rather than personality to personality.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you call in the other person's soul, don't worry, you don't have to see anything, but if you
Right.
call in their soul and you are in your soul space and you tell this person how you feel, and you can either listen to what they feel or just say, we need to forgive each other, we need to get past this, it will heal the issue. It will heal it. I did this with a group of young people who had never even heard of what I'm talking about. And I
Okay.
brought them into a meditation and we worked soul to soul. Miraculously, what happened was many of these young people said, oh my God, I really realized that like I was being ridiculous. I was being
Oh,
angry at
wow.
something I shouldn't have been angry at. So I could just
Right.
let it go. And the whole issue dissolved.
Wow.
It's really powerful work.
That
And we
ability to get into that soul space.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so, practice it. What are the steps? Close your eyes, do some deep breathing, try to get into a relaxed state. Imagine that you're sort of in the cosmos. Imagine that you're sort of out of your body in a night sky with billions of stars. You're in the infinite space of healing and love.
Right.
Imagine you're your soul self. Call in the soul of another and begin the dialogue. You'll see it's incredible. It's incredible. It heals the deeper wounds.
That makes me think of just many things I've learned in regards to the ego, where if you're connecting the ego, you're not really going to get anywhere. But if you get in that soul space.
That's right. Ego to ego is like I say, well, that can be personality to personality. Well,
Yeah.
you know, you could keep butting heads. No, I'm
Right.
right. No, I'm right. The soul doesn't have a right or wrong. It's just
Right.
a letting go to forgive, right? So you can
Yeah.
become whole. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Well, there's more and more of these exercises and things that need to be done, and people need to know how to do them.
Yes, that's so true. I
Yeah,
mean, there's so many that don't understand the ego space and the soul space.
right. If you
Yeah.
think of it, it's funny, somebody asked me that. So what is the difference between the ego and the soul? And so, the ego is, fear. The ego is anger. The ego is I need to be right. You hurt me. All of that. It tends to look more like the human personality. And the
Right.
soul isn't that, right? And even in my book, I wrote about the soul, and the soul is pure love. It is divine essence. And
Mhm.
so if you know that you have that part of you in you somewhere,
Right.
it's more present than you think it is, but it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can begin to work with some of the ego and
Mhm.
recognize when you're in ego and say, no, I don't want to be there.
Right.
Let me work my way out of that and get back and get into my soul space, my deeply profound, loving, accepting, forgiving space.
Right. And that's something like the first 3 seasons of Cult of Kindness, I'm just driving the point of kindness. But then I got to the point just through guest and realization that it was like, well, not everyone can do it that easily. There is a process, you might be connected to soul, but there's some people who have a ways to go.
And they do, and that's why it's a journey. And we
Right.
make no judgment about
Yeah,
what that journey looks like and how
exactly.
long it takes. I
Yeah,
think the most important thing is that you just step on the journey and do the best you can at each step.
right.
If we could
Exactly.
take the judgment out of it, well, it's like if you lose someone, right? And
Hmm.
someone says, well, it's been a year, like you should be over it by now. Well, no, maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
not. I mean, it can maybe it's years if you lost a loved one, or even if a marriage ended that even
Hmm.
wasn't the best, yet there's still a grieving process that has to take place and a forgiveness process.
Mm.
And, I know for myself, and I'll share this with the listeners,
Yeah.
when I lose a loved one, it takes me, as much as I know, and as, you know, evolved as I try to be, it takes me years to actually come back into myself and be healed after losing someone I love.
Sure. Sure.
It
I used
doesn't,
to have such a struggle letting people process because I'm like, oh, let's get to happy, but of course it's not realistic.
and that's an interesting point, because if we're just trying to be happy, it means we're trying to be happy. We're not
Mhm.
naturally internally happy. And
Right.
when we're naturally internally happy, we can allow ourselves to be unhappy or sad for a little while because of a circumstance.
Mm.
All right, as long as we're working to heal that circumstance.
Yeah.
And I'll give you
Absolutely.
a perfect example. I mean, I lost my mother 2 years ago, and I have been going through a grieving process of loving her. And there have been
Mhm.
times when I have felt really, really sad because
Mhm.
I'm missing her. But that doesn't mean I was unhappy, because I am
Mm.
a happy individual.
Right. Right.
So we can allow ourselves to feel some of these lower emotions, even anger in connection to forgiveness. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean we're unhappy unless we're dwelling in unhappiness.
Mm. Very good.
So
Okay.
I hope that it may even help listeners. It's because it's funny you said that. This morning I was thinking to myself something about how some people are always just trying to be happy, and let's just get to the positive, right? Let's just
Right.
return to the positive.
Hmm.
But that's a journey. And if it takes you time to return to the positive, it doesn't mean you're not a positive person.
That's a great point. Yeah. Very good. I'm telling you, Pauline, other than just knowing our initial connection a year or two ago, like it's just always so wonderful because
Thank you.
yeah, you're so insightful. Thank you.
Well, I think the more, listen, it took me 30 some odd years to get here. I didn't just wake up like this, right? So, yes. And if anybody, may I show the book?
Oh,
If any,
yes.
yes, if anybody wants to read the journey, there's the book, The Little Blue
Mhm.
Room, Awakening the
Yes.
Soul to Love, Joy, Freedom, and Power. And it's real. It's real.
Yeah.
The journey is real, and it's not easy, and it's got all kinds of hardships in it. But I guess that's what we chose.
Yes, absolutely.
And we
Well,
can
another
choose
thing
to be happy and still
we can.
not feel 100%. As long as we keep working to get back to that center of our heart,
Mm.
we're good.
Yeah, I'm a work in progress with that. And it's not easy because uh for me it just hurts, and not for everyone. It hurts when you see people not in the happy space. But like you said, it's unrealistic if they're pretending to be happy, that
Right,
that's not genuine.
right, right.
Yeah.
We've agreed to be on this earth plane, and there's a myriad of emotions to be
Yes.
experienced.
Yeah.
And the more we can allow ourselves to feel some of the ones that don't feel so good, with the intention to heal them, heal it,
Mhm.
we can begin to feel the greater expansion of happiness, joy, love, peace. Because I always see it like a rubber band. I don't have a rubber band here right now, but if I did, I would say I'd stretch it this way. So if we're
Mhm.
here and we're going to stretch down into some of the lower emotions, but once they're healed, it snaps back and we stretch upward. We can
Okay.
feel higher degrees of love and peace and joy within us. That's
Right.
how it worked for me. And
Yeah.
it wasn't easy. So I
Mhm.
always figure if it worked for me, it can work for anybody.
Right. Another thing you wrote, I was saying that you wrote that a moment ago, but that was actually what I wrote, was really in sync with where you were in your words. But another piece that I wrote down that you wrote was forgiveness breaks down the wall. Herein is the journey. A concept alone cannot break down the emotional wall around your heart. When
So,
someone tells you to forgive, oftentimes your first reaction is no. Emotions are delicate energies in need of acknowledgement and understanding.
right, right. So to we develop a wall around our heart when we're hurt
Mhm.
or insecure, right? And so how do we, and when we need to forgive someone, so how do we break that wall down around our heart?
Right.
A concept can't do it because the wall around the heart isn't a concept, it's a feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we have to feel it, acknowledge it, grieve it out. I'm a big crier. I let
Yeah.
it out, cry. You know, you can scream it out too, or you can
Mm-hmm.
punch a pillow if that works too. There's all different ways. Go for a walk in nature, breathe it out. Breath work is really powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
so breathe it out. Let it release it. You know, let it go. And the
Yeah.
wall around the heart begins to soften. And when
Mm.
that happens, we can feel deeper feelings of love and joy and just even wake up that way, even when your life isn't perfect.
Mm. Wow.
It's,
Yeah.
yes, it takes work,
Yeah. Now, and that's the thing, the work.
but it's the greatest journey of all. It's the
Mm-hmm.
greatest work we'll ever do because of
Mm-hmm.
the end result of who we'll become in the process.
Sure. It's so worth it.
It's so worth it. I urge everyone,
Mm.
everyone. And with this new year, this 2024 year, totals an eight. Eight is the number of abundance.
Mm.
So the more positive, the more healed you are. It's like I've said, you awaken sort of a magnet in you,
Yeah.
and that magnet begins to attract in more abundance. So it's really worth it.
It is worth it. Oh my goodness. Uh, one last thing you wrote, because I just thought this was so beautiful. Our truest responsibility is to the soul. Everything else is secondary.
That came to me probably over 20 years ago.
Really?
Yes. It was at a time when I was doing a lot of deep work on myself.
Mhm.
And I realized that the greatest relationship of all has to be with self and God or universe, right?
Right.
Source energy. That's our greatest
Mhm.
relationship because that is the foundational relationship from which all other relationships are born.
Right.
So when we are, our truest responsibility is to evolve ourselves, to heal ourselves, to evolve ourselves, to become whole.
Mhm.
That changes the outer relationships that we have to be better and better and better and better.
Right.
So that's why our truest relationship is with
Mhm.
self and source, soul. And from
Yeah.
that place, your other relationships will be in harmony. And if they can't be in harmony, you'll either keep a distance or you may not engage. That will be a personal choice.
Sure. Earlier when you were talking about just getting to this place where you go higher, to have a conversation with soul outside of our own, with other souls. Can we do that just even in regard to maintaining, a good space?
Yes. Yes. it, that's why meditation is so valuable, and walks in nature, right? When we talk
Yeah,
about feeling subtle energies, positive subtle energies, when you go into the woods or you go to the beach or you're in an environment where there's a lot of very pleasant, relaxing, nice energies around,
sure.
this all helps us go higher.
Okay.
It helps us go higher. And if anyone is struggling to go higher in that way, just use your imagination.
Mm,
Just imagine yourself. I think everybody can imagine themselves as who they want to evolve into. Who do I want to be in 1 year or 5 years, right?
right.
I want to be more successful. Maybe I want to be kinder. Maybe I want to listen better.
Hmm.
Uh, maybe I want to communicate better, right?
Right.
Maybe I want to love myself better. Maybe I want to like treat my kids better. I want to give them more time. Whatever it is,
Right.
we can imagine ourselves being that. And if
Yes.
you can imagine yourself being that way, it means you can be that way. Maybe you have a
Very
little
true.
work to do to get there, but you
Yeah.
can. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can.
And that's the biggest thing to keep in mind, the work. It's not instant.
It's not instant. And make no judgment and don't compare yourself to anybody else.
All right. Oh, Pauline, my goodness. Well, thank you on many levels. I know the audience loves you,
Aw,
and this information just is really right on time, not only for myself, but I'm sure for many. And it's a nice way to start the new year.
a great way. Well, I adore you and the work that you do, and it's so important. And I feel so honored to just, be a guest whenever the moment is right. I am
Yes,
delighted.
yes. Oh, well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for helping us start our new year off right.
Blessings to everybody. You are already abundant. Now, tap into
Mhm.
that energy in yourself.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, all. Well, thank you again to Pauline for being on. Pauline will be on here and there, but whenever you're on, Pauline, it's such a treat. And like I said earlier, it's right on time. Thank you.
Well, and thank you. And people can always find me too at paulineraphaela.com. It's very easy.
Very good.
Yeah,
All right, everyone. That's our episode for this week. Pauline, thank you so much again.
my
And I
pleasure.
love you all. Take care.